So the bowl season is here, and it's a fun and exciting time to watch football at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. I love it. I enjoy the the bowl season, seeing the matchups. I do kind of miss the bowl season has now been set up to where the group of five plays a group of five, and the power five plays a power five. You get very few SEC versus Sun Belt matchups, Pac-12 versus Mountain West, etc. Because those Power Five schools don't gain anything from playing the Group of Five. If you win, you are supposed to. If you lose, it's an embarrassment. So those matchups don't happen anymore. But today, instead of talking about the on-field matchups, we are talking about the destinations and not which bowls are the best bowls to go to or whatever. Today, we're talking about where do you want to go? If you're a college football player and you find out your bowl game is in this city, what is your reaction? So I've put the bowls into four separate tiers. The tiers are, I can't wait to get there. That's nice. Are we sure that's a reward for the players? And I'd rather stay home, truthfully. Those are the four reactions to the bowl locations. So without further ado, we're going to start from the bottom, and now we're here. It's the I'd rather stay home tier. And the bowls in that tier are the Independence Bowl, Shreveport, Louisiana. Does that excite you? Now, I have a friend who played Division I football in the MAC, and they played in the Independence Bowl and in another bowl that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And first of all, he's a much better person than I am. He's not nearly as cynical, looks at things on the bright side. And his idea was, like, when else am I ever going to go to Shreveport, Louisiana? Therefore, I'm excited to go because I'm going to get to experience a new city, etc. And in some of these locations, the excitement from a player standpoint is fun and cool because, like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal to some of these cities, and we'll talk about that coming up. But in Shreveport, and a big chunk of this is somewhat weather related. For instance, like Montgomery, Birmingham, Mobile, the weather can be really nice. Like, it could be a nice trip for you. It could also be like 40 and raining every day. And when you are in Montgomery, Birmingham, and Mobile, there's just not a ton of stuff to do. And so if the weather's not great, then if the weather's not great, you're not going to be excited for your bowl game to begin with. So that's a whole different topic. But Birmingham, Mobile, Montgomery, I don't know that instills a ton of like, oh, hell yeah. Like, there's not many places in America where if that's your bowl game destination, you view that as like a considerable step up. You are excited to get there. And Detroit is a similar vein. It's just weather related for the most part. The Detroit in December doesn't sound lovely. And there's basically it's a vacation, right? Like, are you going to go to Detroit on vacation? Probably not. It's that old Joakim Noah when he ran down Cleveland as a member of the Chicago Bulls and was like, well, seriously, have you ever heard anybody say I'm going on vacation to Cleveland? Detroit, similar vein. And Annapolis is somewhat in a similar spot as Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, where Mobile can be a little bit different because it's a little closer to the ocean. You can get a little warmer, but like Annapolis is a mid-Atlantic city in December. Not necessarily. Like, if I'm a college football player, I don't want to have to take long sleeves to wear underneath my football uniform to stay warm during my bowl game. It's nothing against the cities of Annapolis, Detroit, Mobile. I've never been to Shreveport. I've been to Montgomery, Birmingham, Mobile, Detroit. Never been to Annapolis. But does that instill a lot of like, oh, hell yeah? No. No, it does not. So that's the bottom tier. Those are, and that's not in order, by the way. I don't know if I would probably put Shreveport last, is the very last place I'd want to play a bowl game. Now it does, going back to like in Detroit, does a local care about the Quick Lane Bowl coming to Detroit? No, probably not. But in Annapolis, Mobile, Birmingham, Montgomery, Shreveport, it's probably a big deal that bowl game is happening in your city. Like that's a sense of a source of pride, a sense of like, hey, it's really cool that our community pulls this off. And that's a big deal. That's cool. It's interesting. And that matters because that plays into your bowl game trip factor, etc. But okay, I don't know that anybody's dying to go to Shreveport, Louisiana. And it's a similar vein for some of the cities in this. Are we sure that's a reward for the players tier? Because the friend that I mentioned that played in the MAC went to a bowl game in Shreveport and was like, well, when the hell else am I going to go to Shreveport, Louisiana? I get to say I've experienced the city. And he also played in the New Orleans Bowl and in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. And he said, in the New Orleans Bowl, nobody in the city gave a damn that the New Orleans Bowl was happening. But in Shreveport and in Boise, it was a big damn deal. Like we were the only game in town and we were treated like rock stars and it was awesome. And so I bump Boise up one, and it's basically one because I think it would be fun to say you played in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Like I'm a very big believer in there should be almost like an HOA for bowl games, that if you are going to start a bowl game or you are going to find a sponsor for your bowl game or whatever, like your bowl game has to have a cool, badass nickname, a cool, badass name. Instead of the Guaranteed Rate Bowl in Phoenix, it should be the Cactus Bowl. In the Outback Bowl, I think it's like grandfathered, but like in Tampa, like it should be a badass bowl name rather than just the ReliaQuest Bowl. Like, ReliaQuest Bowl sucks. Famous Idaho Potato Bowl sounds awesome. That sounds like a cool bowl game, and it's representative of the city area that it's in. So like El Paso is the Sun Bowl. Does anybody want to go to El Paso? Probably not, but there was the famous, I think the USC punter when they went to the Sun Bowl a few years ago, and the USC punter had tweeted like, well, who the hell wants to go to El Paso? And so the school was going to suspend him for the game. And the Sun Bowl was like, no, bring him. I want him to see what this city and bowl is all about. And I think that's a cool way to do it. But when you go down the list of the cities that I think are in the are we sure that's a reward for the players tier, Albuquerque. I have a very good friend who traveled a lot for work and has said that Albuquerque, New Mexico is the worst place he's ever been. Now, whether he's more like me than cynical and miserable and not the optimist that my friend that played Division I football is, but does Albuquerque, New Mexico instill a lot of like, oh, that's awesome? Not especially, because like some cities in the last tier of you're not really certain what kind of weather you're going to get. Albuquerque's in that boat. Like it could be cold. And I don't want to be cold on my bowl trip. So Charlotte is also on the list. There are 2 bowl games in Charlotte this year, with the Bahamas Bowl being moved because they're doing renovations at the stadium in the Bahamas. By the way, the Bahamas would be in the can't wait to get there tier, which is awesome because it is not for Power 5 juggernauts, right? It is for like MAC, Sunbelt Conference USA, group of 5 schools get a badass bowl location, which if you look at the rather stay at home tier, Shreveport, Montgomery, Birmingham, Mobile, Annapolis, for the most part, reserved for group of 5 schools. You look at this list, Albuquerque, Charlotte. I've also got the Metroplex, so the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You get the Frisco Bowl, Armed Forces Bowl, First Responders Bowl, Cotton Bowl. Cotton Bowl's cool. You're playing in Jerry World. But I don't know that like Dallas in December makes you think like, oh, hell yeah. And it's similar with Houston. I don't know that either one of those cities gets you jacked up to go. Boston and New York are cool places to play bowl games. They're cool cities. In like if you want to go to Fenway Park or Yankee Stadium, Like that's a cool trip. But it's Boston and New York in December. If your options are like, if I got sent to the Pinstripe Bowl when we could have played in like the Pop Tarts Bowl in Orlando, well, I'm gonna be pissed. Yes, it's a cool free trip to New York or Boston, which is awesome in May through August, but in December, kind of stinks. And the final two on this list of are we sure that's a reward for the players is El Paso and Memphis, kind of for similar reasons. I've been to Memphis, lovely street on Beale Street. When I went, basically, like the joke about Memphis was you come for barbecue in Graceland and stay because you got murdered. Yeah, not exactly a place that you're like, I can't wait to get there. In El Paso is in that sort of category of Boise, Shreveport, Annapolis of, well, when the hell else are you ever going to go there? So that elevated it to a second tier, also because the weather is probably going to be pretty nice in El Paso. It's not going to be perfect, but you're going to get pretty good weather, and that moves it to the second tier. Now, the third tier in the list of college football bowl ranking tiers is that's nice. When you text your mom and tell her where your bowl game is, and she says, that's nice. It's not like a, oh my gosh, this is awesome reaction, but it's a better than like, where are we going? So that's nice tier is Conway, South Carolina, which is where Coastal Carolina is. That's the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Now, it's, I think, disingenuous to say you're going to Myrtle Beach because like your hotel might be in Myrtle Beach, but it's still a hop, skip, and a jump. I mean, it's not that far from Myrtle Beach, but it's Coastal Carolina is the name of the university. It's not nearly as coastal as as they would like you to think it is. So it's still just a bit away from Myrtle Beach, but it's still South Carolina in December. Southeast South Carolina in December. Nice. Tampa and Phoenix kind of get on the Tampa, Phoenix, and Jacksonville get on this list basically due to proximity. Like Tampa in December, nice. The Gasparilla Bowl and the ReliaQuest Bowl. One is in one is in Tropicana Field, which I don't know that I would be dying to play a bowl game inside of a baseball stadium that's like widely regarded as the worst baseball stadium of all time. But it's still Florida in December. You're going to take it. Phoenix. I was in Phoenix in October, and it was 102 degrees. And I know people tell you, oh, well, it's a dry heat. It's still hot, but it is a dry heat. And compared to where if you're a Midwest school or a Northeast school or somewhere where it's even remotely cold in December, Pahonix is going to be real nice in December/January. I think San Antonio is a great city. It's borderline. I can't wait to get there. People that go to San Antonio love San Antonio, and the Alamo Bowl has gotten kind of sneaky good matchups the last like 5 years to where it's bordering on almost being like one of the best non-New Year's Six bowls. And I find that interesting as hell. I've been to the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville about a decade ago, where people from Florida were insistent that Jacksonville is not in Florida. Jacksonville is South Georgia. So when a city doesn't want you, I find that, or when a state doesn't want you, I find that to kind of speak volumes about what you're doing in your city. So Jacksonville, it's just it gets to the that's nice tier just because it's in Florida. Atlanta's in a somewhat similar boat. Like Atlanta is this huge city, and when you think about, there are lots of cities that, okay, this is kind of the defining landmark of that city, or this is why you go to that city. And Atlanta doesn't really have that. Like Coca-Cola World, okay, College Football Hall of Fame is in Atlanta now, so that would be a cool little trip that you'd get to go do as a bowl player or whatever. But Atlanta doesn't have that, Gateway Arch, Empire State Building, Sky Needle sort of thing that a lot of other major cities do. And so as a 18 to 23-year-old, I don't know that if we said, hey, we're going to Atlanta, I would be like, oh, Okay, well, what are we going to do there? I don't know. Cool. We'll figure it out. Nashville is in this tier, and it would be dangerously close, I think, to the can't wait to get there tier. The two detractions are similar to Montgomery, Birmingham, other cities. The weather in Nashville in December is either you're going to get a nice day, or it's going to be like 38 degrees, mix of spit and rain and snow. And then if bachelorette parties didn't exist, Nashville would 100% be in the can't wait tier. But it's become this redneck Disneyland that you can't even like get around downtown anymore without bumping into a girl in a pink cowboy hat and oversized cowboy boots going, woo! It's just not. It has detracted some of the fun. Now, if I was a college kid, that would be kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. A college football player, you're shooting fish in a barrel in that situation. But I'm grown enough to know that situation kind of sucks. So Nashville is on that. That's nice because there's a lot of stuff to do in Nashville. You can have a lot of fun there. The weather could stink, and if you're annoyed by woo girls, not a great time. Tucson makes the list for the Arizona Bowl just because it's going to be nice weather. Not a ton to go do and see in Tucson, but you are going to have some pretty nice weather, and that's a nice spot. So the final tier on today's episode is the can't wait to get there tier. And there are, I got 8 areas, I guess, here, because there's some that are somewhat close, like New Orleans. Have you ever been to New Orleans? It rocks. Does Bourbon Street faintly smell like piss? Yes. Are you going to get stabbed if you're there after 1 a.m.? Maybe. But New Orleans is great. Weather, fantastic. Food is phenomenal. Lots to see and do. Hell yeah to New Orleans for the New Orleans Bowl and the Sugar Bowl. Boca Raton Bowl, South Florida in December. Say no more. Las Vegas. I don't know that I need to go through a whole lot about why Vegas for a college football player at a bowl game is fantastic. I think, like, genuinely, I thought that the Las Vegas Bowl would start to see an increase in kind of notoriety because the new stadium there and kind of the resurgence of Las Vegas. And then I realized that, like, no high, like, big time college football coach is going to be like, we need to play important football games in Las Vegas because your players are just not going to be able to handle that. I can't imagine, because there are the coaches that take the bowl trips really seriously. And if you're in the college football playoff or whatever, you should. You're like, damn it, this is a business trip. If you're just playing a meaningless exhibition bowl game in Las Vegas, I can't imagine the amount of fun it would be to be in that city. Honolulu is on the I can't wait to get there tier. It's expensive as hell to go to Hawaii, and it's going to be probably a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You're only going to get to do that bad boy once. And when somebody else is paying for it and you get to go play football, that is awesome. Like, that is a great trade-off. So somebody else's foot in the bill for a super expensive trip, you are going to paradise to play football. Hell yeah. San Diego, great city. Great weather all the time, every day out of the year. Stuff to see, stuff to do. And you're going to be a big deal there because the Padres are the only thing that really exists there anymore, and they're not playing right now. So you're going to have kind of a big following, big crowd, etc., that people are going to care about what you're doing. The last 3 are pretty much all either weather or location related. Orlando in Florida in December/January, New Year's Day. Lot to see, lot to do, great weather, and people care. Miami, Orange Bowl. I've been to the Orange Bowl. Fantastic setup, fantastic weather, fantastic scenery, both downtown and around the city. Miami's great, spectacular. Nobody's bitching and complaining that their bowl game is in Miami. And then last but not least, Los Angeles. The LA Bowl gets on there because new stadium. It's cool. Los Angeles is somewhat as susceptible to, you could have a bad day weather-wise there. But then the Rose Bowl, like, so you get the brand new stadium at SoFi, and then the Rose Bowl's the other stadium that you're playing in, the granddaddy of them all. If the Rose Bowl got to that kind of distinction because people were excited to go to LA on New Year's Day. If it was in Minot, North Dakota, does it carry that same cachet? No, probably not. But the Rose Bowl matters. And so nobody's going to complain that their bowl game is at the Rose Bowl. So that is the definitive, absolute 100. Can't rank them any better than that. Tiers of college football bowl games. First bowl games are on Saturday. Can't wait. I love bowl season like you could not believe. And I'm going to do my damnedest to watch as many as every single one of them as I can. And I hope you join me on that journey. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out here on Saturday Glory. If you are listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. We'll be back on Sunday to recap some of those bowl games. I'll see you then here on the Daily Huddle with Saturday Glory.